hummus.
Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
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 This is David. I am still fighting an awful cold, so I'm going to leave my video off.
Good.
David, that didn't even sound like you. I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm even more sorry to hear it.
Oh,
I will get better. It's just unpleasant for now.
Well,
But I can push the admit button.
our best wishes to you, sir.
Thank you. I will be fine. I have posted in the chat a link.
Thank you, sir. You beat me to it. I see 3 folks from the TAC. Will we have a 4th?
Yes, because Ava just joined.
Aha! Look at that. Huzzah. And we
Hello,
have
good
quorum.
morning.
All right. Well, with us having quorum, let us get started. Welcome to the May 16th edition of the OpenSSF TAC call. Can I please ask someone to help us scribe meeting notes today?
I'll give it a bash.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We do have quorum. Dustin told me ahead of time he would not be here. In the future, I'd like to start off the meeting with report outs of any homework or action items we had. We didn't have any last time, so we will move along. Do we know who's going to be talking about the CTI update today?
Yeah, Carlos O'Donnell and I will be.
Awesome.
Yep, we're here.
Well, are you ready? We would love to give you 10 minutes to give us an update on the core technology initiative, right?
Core toolchain
Core toolchain.
infrastructure project. That's okay.
Acronyms.
It's GCC, bin utils, glibc, GDB. Yeah, I'll share a slide. Let me grab screen share if I can.
Please, yeah. The project formerly known as the new toolchain.
Formerly known as Prince. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, you have the floor. 10 minutes, please.
I will there share, waiting, slideshow. Looks good. Yeah. It's a quick update. We're going to leave less than 10 minutes and that leaves time to talk about any next step if people have any thoughts or comments about how we're doing. Yes, core toolchain infrastructure project. The current status is that the services working group, which had been looking at all of the services that each of the projects needs, has completed. So the last service was actually the compiler, which had probably the most complicated list of services and interdependencies between bug tracking and other things that kind of complicate the developer workflow. But we've taken all of those things, we've enumerated them all, and we've actually started working on cost estimates with LFIT for that. In those discussions, the CTI TAC realized that it's probably easiest to start moving one project at a time. And so as one of the stewards for the upstream glibc project, which is a core C library, I volunteered our project to move first. So the plan was to look at what would be the service migration for one project to secured infrastructure that has paid IT staff supporting that infrastructure, and any builds and things we might do with that infra. So still ongoing is something we raised last time when we had the previous presentation, which is CY23 funding discussions ongoing with OpenSSF and the LF membership. So that kills one of the key objectives. That strikes off one of our key objectives for CY23, which was the services working group completing that. LFIT doing cost estimates is ongoing. And I think one of the suggestions from the TAC last time was to put together a one-page leaflet for the infrastructure project itself to highlight what's the value of the project to sponsors, to the corporate backers. I think companies like Red Hat and IBM kind of know and understand the value because David and I really talk a lot about it. But we need that leaflet to talk to everybody else. So I think that's one of the things that I need to work on next with David's help and the community help to put together, why we want this secured infrastructure and the supported infrastructure for the projects. And so, yeah, we're just going to keep ticking on the key objectives for CY23 for the core toolchain infrastructure project. Again, the goal of the project is to support the GNU toolchain and other projects, core toolchain projects, as in GCC is a core compiler that comes with libstandard C++, which is core C++ runtimes, glibc, so core C runtime, which contains C, POSIX, BSD APIs, and static linker and assembler with bin utils, and debugger with GDB. David, let me hand over to you and say, is there anything else that you want to add here?
No, that's excellent. I mean, just of course the math library and the great performance there, and as you said, this is the foundation of the Linux and internet ecosystem. And the plan here, and I mean, why we're doing this, just to remind everybody, is that to improve and strengthen the infrastructure so that we can provide the sort of OpenSSF's mission. I mean, not the Sterling toolchain, another type of toolchain, but the toolchain of ensuring that we have a secure software supply chain and are able to provide infrastructure that will support SBOMs, SALSA compliance, all the other sorts of requirements to provide the underlying foundation that then all the Linux distros can work on, and various people on the internet, and be able to comply with these forthcoming regulations from industry and government to ensure that this remains a vibrant community, vibrant infrastructure that everybody can rely upon for the necessary software hierarchy that we've built.
Yeah, for sure. I work with Josh Stone, who's on the Rust Foundation board, because some people say, well, like, it sounds like you're talking just about C and C++, but the reality is that even the Rust tool chain at a runtime level has to call into the host C library for certain things. And the same goes for Go, and the same go for a number of other language runtimes that rely on core runtimes themselves to provide services and features for the languages. So I still think it's critically important that we keep moving this work forward to provide a foundational infrastructure for these projects. And I'm going to pop to the end. So any comments and suggestions from the TAC on what we're doing and where we're going?
Before we go to Brian, if we could please get this presentation to share out with the membership, that'd be great. And we'll do Brian and then
Sure.
Zach.
And I just wanted to add, for anybody who's either new to this, the core toolchain infrastructure project is designed to be set up like an associated project like Alpha Omega, where it'll report and kind of and provide updates to this TAC on its technology approach and the like. But it'll be funded from a separate pool of funds than core OpenSSF budget, potentially many familiar names, potentially other names as well. The second thing I wanted to just note, because I think we kind of skipped over this, and I'll be the one to kind of put it out there. It was renamed from GTI, the GNU Toolchain Initiative, to CTI, partly on the some requests we got from some of the free software folks that we avoid using the term GNU in the name of a project, which is a little ironic given what the U in GNU stands for, but we decided to respect their wishes, and it was an easy change to make. So that's why this is now called CTI rather than GTI.
Yeah, I mean, and exactly as Brian said, thanks very much for clarifying that. And as Brian said, we're avoiding the letter G as well at the request of the FSF. And with all due respect to Sesame Street.
Zach, please.
If there are interested parties who would like to follow along this work, where should we point them at? Slack channel, repositories, mailing lists, etc.
So we have a mailing list with the LFIT on Subspace, so lore.kernel.org. I can add those links to the end of my slide deck, and then I'll give the slide deck over to the list, and then you'll be able to access that. So yeah, we can absolutely have observers sign up to the TAC mailing list and talk with us and engage. Yeah.
Yeah, also, I mean, just to follow on, I mean, clarify it specifically at the request of the broader GNU toolchain, GNU and FSF community, that all of the meetings are both when we eventually have a governing board, but TAC are fully open to everyone as an observer, and other than any confidential or personnel or other sorts of things that we would need to discuss in some sort of executive committee. And we also are planning to work with the Linux Foundation IT and marketing team, and we have domains to be able to set up a website and a better sort of landing page for this infrastructure, and to also hopefully help the GNU toolchain in general with its as a supplemental communication and marketing for that organization.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for the update, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Very excited to see this moving forward, and let us know what we can do to assist. And we look forward to getting the presentation so we can share it out.
How do you want me to share that presentation? I think I may have asked this previously.
If you want to paste it into the agenda, or
perfect. Yep, I can do a Google Drive link to the presentation, paste it in the agenda. Perfect.
Great. All right, last call for questions, comments. Groovy. I had noticed that Jennifer had put out a link to a survey. So another new part of our meetings, we want to share information and requests or projects that are going on throughout the foundation. And there is currently a OpenSSF software security awareness survey. Is Jennifer here? I don't see her.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's not here because we're attending. I'm here in Boston with her on the sideline of an event where we're talking about what we're doing. So I can just quickly provide
Please.
an update, which is we are conducting a self-selected survey. So it will depend upon people showing up to the survey to fill out some questions to try to assess just the market awareness amongst the technology management community, awareness of the OpenSSF, awareness of some of our key projects, ask a few questions about what people know, just to try to assess, again, awareness and like, are we getting the right word out in the right way? So we'll put a blog post out tomorrow. We'll push it heavily on social. We would really love amplification from others to that. We did work with a number of the projects to develop the questions as well. So when you see this hit the blog, or we'll post about it to TAC as well, your help in getting the word out would be appreciated. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a quick question. I mean, I assume you don't really want the answer from people like us, right? Because this is really for the people in the broader community.
Exactly.
Even like, I mean, in the working groups and all those people, clearly we don't really need their answer, right?
That is correct. No, but your help in, I mean, the people who follow you on social, and you,
Yeah,
Arno, as well as everyone else here, other people in your companies could be helpful, but also beyond. So yeah, we're hoping to just get that next tier out, and there's some qualifying questions in the survey as well to try to filter out, people who aren't the survey isn't targeted for. But yeah, that's why I was saying help on social would be helpful.
Sure, thanks.
I'll pass it along to the 8 people that follow me. All right.
You're a little more famous than that, bro.
9. Okay, so let's get into the section where we have new work. So in the future, I would love for us to have issues filed in the TAC repo. I would like for us to comment and have a dialogue publicly via that mechanism. I would love for the TAC members to review these PRs and issues before the meeting, and then we can come into this call and have a educated conversation, close off any final commentary or debate. And I will commit to sending out a message to the TAC mailing list ahead of time to remind us of kind of what is on the docket coming up. This week, let's start off with TAC issue 129. This is something our former esteemed leader, Mr. Calloway, had started in the fall or earlier last year. So I'd like to try to close off. We've had several of the folks from the TAC review and approve the PR, but essentially we want to update the vision, and I have posted the text here in the agenda. You also are welcome to look at the text in the PR. So let's spend 5 minutes or so or less, and let's does anyone have any comments, suggestions, or feedback before I push the magic button or not?
I would only say that I added some comments during this call, so if you had loaded the page, please refresh.
I will refresh. Anything to discuss more in depth, Ava? Does it change the text at all, or?
It is a substantial change in 2 parts of the text, yes.
All right. Let's see. Oh, it's such a long issue. So any additional feedback? Zach.
Yeah, the existing text makes reference to key stakeholders that the OpenSSF will periodically review the value proposition with. And I was just wondering for some clarity as to who those key stakeholders were, if that was the OpenSSF membership or the entire open source ecosystem, or.
I agree with Zach's question. My comment attempts to answer that.
So I can't figure out how to tell the room to raise my hand on Zoom. I'm using some sort of hybrid Google Meet Zoom bridge here, so apologies for not following protocol. But as the author of the line, I guess I can kind of give some context. I view key stakeholders as not only the governing board, but also peer open source foundations that are working with us around adoption and ultimately improving their security posture. I view individual projects as stakeholders, perhaps sorted by criticality measures in terms of just size and impact and kind of relevance within the broader dependency graph of the ecosystem. So when I think of key stakeholders, it's folks that are using the products and services, or not products, but projects and services that we are producing, as well as folks that are interested in aligning and supporting with the work, as so both end users as well as maintainers that may be adopting techniques or services that the foundation fundamentally offers. So I would say certainly the governing board and our member constituent entities, but also kind of the broader folks that would be interacting with the outputs of the organization.
So I'd love to respond to that. Right now, we don't have any mechanism for the stakeholders you're identifying, Bob. We have a governing board, obviously, and our own members are people who are participating here, but there's no formal way for what I will coin the phrase here, affiliated foundations or other foundations in the broader open source ecosystem. There's no clear way for them to participate and have a voice. So if we're saying they are stakeholders, we must create a way for them to have a stake. And I think that is a really good way to visualize our mission.
I guess I would say I think that folks from the Eclipse Foundation, folks from other foundations have joined like this call, for example, in the past, maybe not with regular consistency, but I would say like the forum is open. But that being said, I would also echo your sentiment that I heard, which is I think we should be more proactive about outreach and engagement and ensuring the things that we are doing are actually heard and delivered. So in terms of like
that is
going
not
back
quite
to
what I meant.
Okay.
If I view the OpenSSF as a service org, we are providing valuable services to all of open source and other stakeholders, policymakers. Sure, they could show up. They could choose to spend time to come here to say things to us, the TAC, or to the governing board, or to projects or working groups, but there is no structural means for them to have a stake at the table, a vote. And that dynamic means, if we choose to do things they don't like, they stop accepting our services. There's not a healthy feedback there.
I would note that the Eclipse Foundation is an associate member of the foundation. So I don't know if that's as effective or a vehicle that we should be encouraging or discouraging, but I would just note that that is a notion there. I guess what I was going after more of this being kind of the vision of having a relationship with those stakeholders where the value that we are trying to create and the outcomes that we are trying to create are clearly communicated, and there are feedback mechanisms in place to where active dialogue can take place, so that if we're building things that nobody's using, that's a problem. I'm after in that kind of text here is that we've identified those stakeholders, we have effective communication channels to those stakeholders, and there is that bidirectional feedback that's occurring. That's what I'm envisioning in terms of if we're working well as a foundation, those sorts of relationships and the friction would be removed in that. So yes, I would agree. Like probably some improvement that needs to happen today, but the vision, which was the goal of the PR, is to say like getting into a world where we have dedicated resources that own the outreach and own the gathering that feedback, bringing it back to the various working groups or the TAC. That's ultimately what I was agitating for in the comment.
Great. Then I think we're both pointing towards the same thing, maybe with a little different words, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Great conversation. I would ask specifically the TAC, but anyone else that is interested, please provide us feedback. I would like to potentially see if we can gain consensus by our next meeting and approve this or not. So please, TAC specifically, continue to iterate, reflect on Ava's comments, and see what we might be interested in adjusting. And I'll bring this back up in our next meeting to potentially push the magic button on or not. That sound fair? Ava.
Kreb, I did have one other comment on there that's hopefully a brief one. I would love to see an inclusion somewhere. There's a couple spots where it could be merged in, that all of the tools, improvements, et cetera, that the OpenSSF is building and providing are intended to be made available at zero cost. I think that's a key part of our vision, that we're providing this at zero cost to the rest of open source communities. And that just wasn't enumerated in this.
Okay, I think that's excellent feedback, and let us consider that this week. Please, TAC, spend a few minutes reviewing and pondering that, how we might be able to incorporate such things. All right, scrolling down, I would like to spend a few minutes on TAC issue 161. I do not wish to bike shed this here. I would like to get interest from this group. If there are some excited contributors that are interested in talking about and helping refine and develop making sure that our processes are consistent for SIGs, SIFs / associated funded projects things. So let's spend a little bit less than 5 minutes on this, please. Is there interest amongst the group to spend some time working on this? I see a head nod from Zach, a thumbs up from Amanda, thumbs up from Bob. All right. Well, then I would encourage us, again, specifically TAC, but anyone else, any observer, any other participant in the foundation, feel free to comment. But I would like to see if we can get a small group of us sit down and collaborate on that and come back and present a suggestion for how that language might be updated so that we can review and potentially adopt in the future. Does that sound like a good path forward for us? Any counter opinion? Ava.
Just a small note that changes to some of those may need governing board approval as they are in the charter. So some of them refining things may not entirely well within the TAC's purview. Just keep that in mind as planning out that process.
Absolutely. And we would also, after the group has created their suggestion, we would review here more thoroughly at the TAC and then make that decision. You know, do we need to up to the governing board? Is it something we need to share with the broader membership? So that is still TBD. Dan.
All right. Is it acceptable for non-TAC members to be involved in that discussion?
If you are interested and excited, I would not turn away any engaged participants.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
But I do need the TAC to kind of own it, but anyone else is interested, able to collaborate. Mr. Ware.
I was just going to say, include me. I'll be happy to participate in that.
Awesome. Well, there's the PR. If you let's see if somebody's interested in either setting up a call or if we can do this asynchronously. Let's see if we can get some progress on this. And when the group is ready, just let me know and we'll get you put back onto the TAC agenda. All right. Moving along to issue 162. There is an interest to potentially go through and do a review of all the foundation documentation, readmes, charters, membership lists, to make sure that everyone within the foundation is doing things consistently, that outside viewers or members could be able to quickly understand what each group is about and how to engage with them. So we are looking at trying to solicit some volunteers and participants to help us go through this review. So let's talk about this for a few minutes. Any comments, suggestions, or hands raised to participate? Thumbs up from Jacques. Arnaud is interested. Zach is interested. Awesome. So again, this is something I don't necessarily wish to bite shed here on this call, but I would expect the group do some work and come back to this group for feedback when they're closer to finalizing. Zach.
So I guess there'll be maybe a subgroup meeting to put together an action plan for review by the TAC. But one thing I would suggest to that group is kind of bucketing things into like things we can get done in a short time frame, and then maybe things that are on a medium and more long-term time frame. I think we could probably do a quick iteration of quick wins here that would not get us to meet all of these bullet points outlined on the issue, but could kind of help us move forward without trying to have everything figured out in order to make any forward progress.
That sounds great. And if anyone is interested in running this little group, helping facilitate for the team, please let us know. Any other questions, comments, feedback on that particular item? All right. Next issue is issue 163. Let's spend about 10 minutes talking about this. There was a request from the Public Policy Committee as they were reflecting upon the EU's Cyber Resiliency Act and the PLD, the Product Liability Directive. So there are two. There's a update to the PLD and the CRA's new legislation that's working through the EU's parliamentary process. And the Public Policy Committee asked specifically for the TAC to provide them a technical review of what the impacts when this legislation is put into effect, what that would be, and help provide them information so that they can work with and decide kind of how do we want to issue a response? Is it just briefing material for the membership? Basically, we've been asked to do a technical analysis of the security impacts of the CRA and the PLD.
And if I may add a little more color to this, as I was the one who brought that request across, it is Public Policy Committee has already done a lot of analysis and engaged with other partner orgs on the policy impact, the business impact, things like that. What they have not done and are asking the TAC to look at is if these two pieces of legislation go into effect unaltered, technically, is this achievable? Are there technical controls that we can look at and review and say, yes, regardless of how much it costs or what the economic impact would be, that's actually a good technical thing, or that's actually a bad technical thing. Right? And so to separate in our review the financial, policy, political, business impacts, and only look at the technical impacts.
Thank you. That was excellent clarification. And so a group of enthusiastic members mugged me at the OSS North America. And so we had a nice, pretty substantial conversation, and we started to hammer out some of what those talking points might be, and then to collect some of the very good resources that, again, we could share with the membership as their organizations or projects decide what they might want to do. And so we started
I think
Google
it was more
document.
more like a full body massage than a mugging, but
it was pretty close. But yes, so a group of us got together and started this Google document that we are looking for participation to help provide that back to the Public Policy Committee. And Mr. Bellendorf.
Yeah, I'll add, so there's a bunch of amendments that are still floating out there to the CRA that are in the process of being worked. And it's a highly political and, to me at least, fairly opaque process, but there's some really dedicated people trying to bend how this turns out. This is something separate from that. It requires thinking about what, depending on where those amendments line up, let's assume it'll be somewhere between slightly positive, possibly, to very negative for open source. But the question is really, is it worth it? Is it worth the security, the value of the security ramifications that might come out of this. It would be a good thing if everyone was adopting S-bonds, for example, but if they do it too quickly, we end up with a lot of legacy out there that actually work against the interests of security. And it is going to be tough to separate this completely from the business and financial questions, because some of it will be, what's the adoption of approach A versus B, because it's a lot of cost, right, to implement something, and is there a faster way to have more, or a way to have more impact given the same amount of resources applied than actually this is bad policy rather than good policy. So the place where the OpenSSF as a collective could really stand out is by saying, in the collective wisdom of the folks who have been immersed in the technical issues, we think this approach or that approach has merit, or is uncertain, or clearly does not have merit. And that will depend a bit on how these amendments play out over the next, what I think is essentially month or two. And so we can refine this as we learn more about which amendments get accepted. But that kind of quantitative just understanding of, is this good for security in the first place, is really what we're trying to get at here.
Thank you. Arno.
Yeah, so I'm very interested by what's being talked about here, because it kind of brought a new dimension that I not thought about, to be honest, when I looked at this first, which is, it seemed to be initially framed as merely being the impact is, what kind of, and I think it's expected the impact is negative, and we need to discuss, describe how negative it is. But I like the way Eva mentioned the feasibility aspect, right, which is a bit of a different take to this, because it could be feasible but still have a bad impact, or vice versa, right? Well, the opposite, I guess, doesn't make much sense, but you know what I mean.
Well, we could desire a good impact, but it's infeasible to get there. Or, the cost to having the desired outcome might be astronomical, which is a choice that governments can make that is outside of my scope to really have comment on.
Right.
So as I wait for additional comments, the Public Policy Committee meets again on June 1st. They'll meet this week, but they will meet again June 1st. And we should have our analysis and thoughts put together probably by the last couple days of May, please. So if anyone is interested, we have the Google document, we have the issue in the TAC repo. Please make comments, put suggestions directly into the doc. If anyone is interested in spinning up a little committee to focus on this and have kind of a high velocity collaboration, I would encourage us to potentially do that as well. But at the end of the day, by June 1st, I would like to deliver this set of talking points back to the Public Policy Committee so that they can take whatever additional action they would like to from there. Any additional thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I have one, which is, it occurred to me, I mean, I don't know if it's a real problem or not, but security people and OpenSSF in particular already provided feedback as part of the public consultation,
right,
where we essentially said, we talked about the bad impact on liability aspect to open source developers, but we fundamentally started, I mean, Brian, I think, wrote it, and it's a good paper, but it basically says, yes, we embrace this. This is great. And so now we seem to be backpedaling a little bit into saying, well, not so quick, maybe it's not so great, or I don't know how we're going to make this work out, but I have a little concern there.
The outcome of this task, from my perspective, is we are not going to use this to talk to parliamentarians. This is kind of a fact-gathering session to provide information to the membership and to the Public Policy Committee and the Governing Board. We're not trying to make a policy stance here. We're very late in the game for that. in the future, CRA 2.0, maybe we get to do this months ahead and we're prepared like the OSI and Eclipse and everybody. But yeah, I don't know that we're going to be able to influence anybody outside of our membership saying these are things you need to be aware of and educate yourselves on. Brian?
Yeah, and just understand, even after these amendments are adopted, there's still going to be a lot of differences in how these things, how that act gets interpreted and implemented, and likely still some time. And that might be the phase that this data we're collecting could be most impactful upon, which is, you know, the actual implementation details, bending those to be more positive for security and away from being the ones that we don't think will be helpful. And it is a nuanced message, and it does look weird for an organization that's all about increasing security to be arguing against a security bill, but it makes sense if the security bill doesn't actually have the impact that it claims it will have. So we just want to be a bit of a reality check on that and help inform really the next stage. And one outcome of that also might be maybe this current legislation is too early to really be fully adopted by the full European Union. But that's only a substantive case if we can show that its goals, its technical goals, its security goals are either, you know, questionable or not achievable, or that it's simply too early for folks to vote on.
Yeah, no, this is a good point. You know, the aspect that I don't know that many people are aware is that, you know, this process is 2 steps. The first one is the CRA, which is really setting up requirements. Then it goes through a technical process where basically the European Commission turns to the standards community and say, please define how we implement this. Unfortunately, to be completely honest, the problem is, I don't know that we can rely on, you know, typical European standards bodies to defend the open source angle.
And one other point as we wrap up on this, many of us here work for very large organizations that have public policy teams and lawyers that are taking steps today to work with the commission in this process. Many of the members do not have that capability. So this again could be a resource for the membership to educate themselves and give them resources where they can learn more and do their own evaluation and understand how those individual members might wish to react. Any final thoughts before we move on? So it sounds, please comment on the issue, comment on the doc, and if there is enough energy, if we want to have a kind of a collaboration session again, let's see if we can get that on the books here. But I would like to get this back to the Public Policy Committee by June 1st. Excellent. All right, let's move along to the Defining Sterling Toolchain, TAC issue 151. We had a similar group of enthusiasts in Vancouver that were very excited to talk more about the concept of the Sterling toolchain. So a group of us met and talked through and shared our opinions and ideas on what it might be. And we agreed we would like to set up, again, that high velocity collaboration session. So first and foremost, there is a doodle poll. Please, if you are interested in participating, click on the link and we will get a formal meeting set up very soon. This will be weekly calls where we can get together for anyone interested and try to help refine the idea, put some meat on it, and make some plans and next steps, and then come back to this group and other groups and kind of present what we're looking for. I have an exciting bar napkin diagram and a Visio diagram, which was part of the conversation, that I will get uploaded shortly. And so let us spend a few minutes and talk about this. Thoughts, people are interested in participating, feelings, love letters. Zach.
I guess maybe I should fill out the doodle poll, but what I was going to say from reading the doc that came out of the meeting in Vancouver is that I really love the idea of thinking about either existing security capabilities or emerging security capabilities and how to apply this across open source ecosystem. maybe through the lens of, open source programming language package managers. One thing I've learned from successful and unsuccessful collaborations with NPM and PyPI is that often these organizations already have like a security roadmap, and I'm never sure how aware folks are of these things, but I'll post in the Zoom chat a link to the Python Software Foundation fundable packaging improvements. And I think if Dustin was here, he would tell us that PyPI has seen a lot of success with this approach of taking security capabilities, putting them into bite-sized chunks that a finite amount of resources working over a finite amount of time can deliver the capability, and then getting funding to fund people who are already sort of like domain experts in that language ecosystem or in that security capability to deliver them. I know in some of the Sterling toolchain conversations, there's been this maybe back and forth about how top down are we versus bottom up. And I would encourage us to think about how we could either help existing ecosystems put together a fundable security improvement list if they don't already have one, and then work through this mechanism to ensure that we're helping them deliver these capabilities in the way that they want.
Excellent feedback. Thank you, Zach. I'm sharing the Visio diagram that was kind of the basis of the conversation we had. This is a suggestion on the approach the group generally thought was okay. And again, I would like to spend a lot more time talking through this, incorporating feedback like Zach just gave us approaching the package manager ecosystems. I think that's excellent feedback, thinking how we might be able to achieve these goals. Any other thoughts or feedback? Dan.
Yeah, I think probably I'm going to be a broken record. I did respond to the doodle poll. I'm happy to be a part of it, the discussion. The thing that I'm hoping to input is the concept of toolchain as platform, so that we see this as enabling and empowering others to deliver great stuff, so that basically that OpenSSF isn't competing with its members. I think that's kind of the key thing that I'm key to make sure it's not happening. Okay.
And if we take the security architecture pattern-based approach, and we put forth the requirement, for example, we have secure IDE, for example, as a pattern. We would not necessarily go out and write one. We might identify, here are some great examples, but we would document requirements of what we'd like to see. And that would allow any project to start and maybe work on that mission. Or if there was a commercial entity that had an offering, they could align saying, this is how we help support that secure IDE pattern. We are in reference architecture, that'd be a pattern and implementation. Any addition? And again, I do not wish us to compete against ourselves, but I want to try to be sensitive to everyone's thoughts on what they're interested in participating in and working to achieve.
I mean, I would also encourage us to think about things like scorecard and other opportunities for the foundation to develop an infrastructure or code that helps us build that ecosystem. I think that's what is happening anyway. So it's just a matter of kind of keeping that vision and staying sticking to the guns.
Exactly. So again, anyone interested in participating, we will be setting this up very soon. Patches and collaboration are always welcome as we move forward on this. Any closing thoughts on that potential idea?
Yeah, me again. My understanding was that OpenSSF had an open rec to hire some architect. This would be Yeah, what is
Maybe-
the status? And because if we had an architect, this would be the perfect kind of gig they should be involved in, I would think.
We do. We have been looking at the candidates and starting to talk with some of them. So we will update you when that person's hired. But I don't think any of the work that we're doing here should be held up to wait for that role.
No, I didn't mean that either. But thanks.
And as a trained security architect, I look forward to collaborating with any future architects or people that are just curious and interested to help. All right, let us move on to our last topic for today, TAC issue 164. We will spend the last 10 minutes or so talking about this. Was this you, Zach?
Yes, well, actually, there was Jordan Harbant has been working on this issue. I think he started working on it before this TAC was seeded, and so I wanted to kind of take this work that was happening off to the side and bring it through formal channels. Jordan has written a proposal for how we should manage permissions inside the OpenSSF GitHub organization. Today, what that looks like is that there are individuals who are added to specific repositories as they need permissions, but there's no sort of like second half of the life cycle. So people just keep getting added and accruing even as their relationship with the OpenSSF changes over time. And so there's two parts to Jordan's proposal. One is to more formalized membership and have teams. So there would be a specific team for the TAC, one for Linux Foundation staff, et cetera. And then that would make it a little bit easier for us to reason about which permissions individuals would have, especially as their role in relation to the OpenSSF changes over time. And then the second half of Jordan's proposal is around potentially opening up the OpenSSF GitHub organization so that essentially anyone with a GitHub account could join it and sort of display that membership on their profile page as sort of an indication of support. And then there are some downstream consequences of that we need to figure out, like what does that process look like? How is that managed? That sort of thing. And so, yeah, essentially I wanted to make sure that Jordan's work was visible to this group. I think that this is something that the TAC should decide on. And if you haven't already, please take a look at the pull request that you put together and give feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent context, Zach. And I'll state my two working groups, the best working group and vulnerability disclosures were a bit of a guinea pig because we actually have a members file that he was basing off some of these changes. And I personally feel role-based access control is great. That's how I started off my career in the cybers. So I would endorse this and I would encourage everyone to participate and figure out a way we can implement some of this. And I agree that the overtime collection of entitlements is a challenge. Then I think we need to think through some of that. Eva.
I wholeheartedly support moving to role-based access control groups, as it were. On the second point, though, I would love to better understand the implications of having open membership for the org. One of the open questions I've had since beginning PR 112 last year was, how do we define our electorate? Who can vote in these elections? And at the moment, most working groups, as far as I'm aware, don't have a defined electorate. The OpenSSF itself, I know staff goes through a process they've done twice now for the TAC election of, excuse me, sort of reviewing all of our activity channels, Google Docs, Slack, etc., to determine who's been active. It would be, I imagine, very helpful to the staff to have that process be easier if there was a simple membership list they could pull from somewhere. But how do we make sure that membership list is accurate and automated over time would become the next question or challenge, so that we don't have thousands of people just clicking join for the little happy badge. Right. So all of that has to be worked out, I think, before we can open up membership. But in general, I like the idea of having a publicly visible recognition for members and publicly trackable list of who's active in the whole org and in subgroups of the org. That really enables a lot better representation and the democratic process for us.
Agreed. Arno?
Yeah, I think you've articulated very well that the second part of the proposal is definitely a bit more difficult, I think. And maybe for that reason, I would suggest to separate the two, because on the first one, I'll echo what I said in the issue earlier today when I was looking at it. It's like, is there any downsides other than the cost of actually implementing the role-based access control? I mean, it seems to me that this is, I don't know, is there anybody who is concerned doing this? I would expect everybody to say, yeah, let's do this. But maybe I'm wrong, I don't know.
I also think it does, that first half really dovetails into the other proposals on the TAC agenda today for improving our processes. It's a standard part of onboarding and offboarding in leadership roles to, check or remove someone from a group membership.
I agree. And that was part of the intention of the 162 PR, is to, as we go through and do a review of each of the working groups, to get some of these processes like membership and kind of defining how they want to vote kind of established. Brian.
Just to avoid future semantic confusion, can I plead that we reserve the term member for the sponsoring members as companies of the OpenSSF, since we use that term pervasively for that purpose, then focus on contributors, being anybody who's participated in helping improve something that's under the OpenSSF banner, and maintainers being the people who are responsible as a team at the working group level, at the project or initiative level, or the SIG level, that sort of thing. Thank you.
That's an excellent comment. I would suggest you put that into PR 162 so we get that captured forever and we remember that going forward.
I support these three capitalized terms.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone disagrees, Brian. I think that's very reasonable and very simple. Just we should have that common language and have that understanding.
I only emphasize it because I slip up too.
Just one clarification. It's not PR 162.
Oh, issue. I'm sorry, issue 162.
Issue. Yeah.
Any additional thoughts or feedback on it? Sounds like in general, we are very positive towards the idea. We would probably like to split up the two components, maybe do one today, wait for issue 162 maybe to get resolved, then come back and reconsider the second part of Jordan's.
Wait, it's 164.
Is it 164? No. Well, the 162 is the audit. 164 is the actual doing the group, the actual access control work. But so it sounds like we are generally positive. Do we have people that are interested in participating and would like to potentially help facilitate this for us to make sure we have velocity?
I am definitely interested in participating in the discussion around how we define and track membership of contributors and maintainers.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, well, please express yourself in comments on all the issues listed today. We'll see if we can collect a group of participants that are interested in collaborating on this to see if we can get some speedy resolution on these. In our last several minutes together, is there anything, any other thoughts that people are interested in or points they wanted to bring up before we adjourn? In the future, I would love to flag issues that the TAC will be voting on, making sure that it's prominently noted here that we will be conducting a vote so that in future TAC people can go back and see this information is clearly designated. Today, we don't have anything, but in the future we may, and I'll stage it there on the agenda so everyone's aware ahead of time. All right, well, I thank you all for your time and participation. Some excellent conversations. I'm looking forward to collaborating with everybody on all of these topics in the near future. And as you have items you wish to put onto future agendas, please stage those as issues in the TAC repo and we'll get those collected. And I think next time we will be getting readouts from the BEST working group and the end user working group. So we'll make sure we get that material circulated to this group beforehand. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Happy open sourcing all. Cheers.